Hello, welcome to the self-learning platform by Dr. Sushma Singh. Today we start Unit 20, Socialism. Let us have introduction about the unit. In this unit, we will discuss the following issues. What is it that calls forth the need for socialism? And what is socialism? Socialism is a set of doctrines or a cluster of ideas and a political program that emerged at the beginning of the 19th century. It arose out of a revolt against bourgeois property. Property in all civilized societies has been considered sacred. Exceptions were primitive communities, also known as tribal. In bourgeois society, it is loses its sacredness but gets a new type of sanction. It now becomes an inalienable right. Inalienable is anything which cannot be separated from the person, something entrenched with the individual. What then are the implications of property rights as inalienable? One main objective of the state is taken to be to ensure the liberty of property. Right to private property has been regarded by much of the liberal theory as the key to liberty of the individual and to the pursuit of his happiness. To John Locke, the father of liberal view of society, right to life, liberty and property is a natural right, and human beings enter into a contract to create a state for the protection of this right. From then on, through Adam Smith to Jeremy Bentham and the modern proponent of capitalism, which now has taken an aggressive posture under globalization in our time. The institution of private property has been politically sacrosanct and an essential condition of such progress. Next point is the doctrine of social progress, individualism, and capitalism. The doctrine of social progress is predicated on the assumption that the pursuit of or rational self-interest by every individual will, over a period of time, even if temporary setbacks have to be faced, lead to social good. This means that general social welfare will be the result of individual maximization of interest. This prevailing view of the new man was well captured by Alexander Pope in the following verse. Thus, God or nature formed the general frame, and bade self love and social be the same. We all know Adam Smith is of quoted maxim of invisible hand. Everyone is not only a maximizer of self interest, but is an infinite appropriator and an infinite consumer of goods of every kind. Property is the measure of man, and in a capitalist society, whichever way one looks at it, all routes converge on property, and through it, the individual's pursuit of his happiness. What we get as a picture of man under such a social arrangement is an egoistic person, disassociated from all other individuals and all by himself in a space called the marketplace. This extreme individualism is best captured in the words of John Locke, the father philosopher of liberalism. He says, the state exists to promote civil interest, and civil interest I call life, liberty, inviolability of body, and the possession of such outward things as money, lands, houses, furniture, and the like. A letter concerning tolerance. He then argues that though the earth be common to all men, yet every man has a property in his own person. This nobody has a right but himself. Two treaties of government. It is clear in above statement that bourgeois property is exclusively individual and that it legitimates the exclusion of other from it. In federal property, other members too had entitlements on the fruits of property. In this view of things, there is no sense of an individual's social obligation to others or of sharing in benefits of a social system in the creation of which people cooperate together. In any complex system, every property is the result of the common exertion of people, but its possession is always exclusively private. The common good is identified with the individual good. The individual good is each man for himself. The state has the function to ensure that those who succeeded in acquiring property have full protection. All the means of production, land, factory, raw material, tools, and instruments, and such other things which go into the production of necessities of life and other goods in such a society are privately owned, and these get, as history shows, concentrated in fewer and fewer land hands as capitalist production is based on increasing or accumulation. This has two very important consequences for society. First, all decision about investment choices, which commodities to produce and in what quantities, is determined by a small group of people who own these means of production. Whether the commodity is socially beneficial or not is not the main consideration. What determines the investment choices is whether effective demand can be created. In other words, profitability of goods is the sole consideration in the making of choices about investment. Whether luxury cars will be produced when there is a crying need for buses, public transport is left to be decided by the profit motive of the individual entrepreneurs. Same is the case whether guns or bombs should have precedence over the urge need to have a hospital or a school. Production in society is without any plan and often can be of wasteful nature. Expensive, fatless potato chips can score over the need for cheap bread, which ordinary people may badly require. Distribution following from the above investment choices for wrong kind of commodities goes on regardless of social need or urgency of one who can pay. Secondly, such an economic system or mode of production creates a class freed from social and legal obligations to perform labor. This is the class of capitalists. It stays out of the labor process and imposes the burden of productive labor on the rest of the society. So we have a large part of society, a majority, who live solely on their wages, which in turn are determined by the cost of reproducing the labor power of the person as well as the demand and supply of labor. We thus find that the capitalist society is sharply divided between those who own the capital and others' means of production, and those who have nothing but empty hands and sell this labor power under conditions which are loaded against them. Just look around the world to see the truth of this statement. A society with such a class division cannot respect the person who labors. One who labors is dispossessed as he just survives on the wages he receives. Property and possession is the basis of esteem. All the economic privileges, social predominance, and prestige are with those who own the means of production, the capitalist. All of these social assets are means to and provide immediate access to political power. That is why the bourgeoisie in capitalist societies have rightly been called the ruling class, the class with the power to determine the main features of any capitalist society. In sum, we can say that class determines the structure of society, which in turn conditions the values, attitudes, actions, and the overall articulation of any civilization. So, when we talked in the beginning that socialism has been a revolt of sorts against bourgeois property, it was not just property per se, but the entire system of production and government that the bourgeois property gives rise to and imposes on the rest of the society.